Hey guys, Omni here. So yesterday I went and saw Dragon Ball Super Superhero, and I gotta say that when I saw the promotional images for this and the initial trailers, and that they are going full commitment onto the 3D animation for this one, where before, previously, it might pop up here and there in some of the productions, specifically here more recently in Broly, where they had some of the craziest action in the entire series, where they had some moments where it would have just been too time consuming or costly to 2D animate it. So there was some sequences where it did transition into 3D animation, and it's very noticeable. They don't blend it in very well, but it was really just used to accentuate the action, whereas here it is just taking it all away. And I've never been a huge fan of that style, that look. It just kind of gave me this like opening cutscene DBZ video game kind of feel to it. But that said, when I went into the movie and it started going, the story picked up and we got introduced to our characters and the things got going, I'll be completely honest, I stopped really even noticing it. Aside from two scenes, and mostly it wasn't really the scenes themselves as so much it was a specific character where I felt like it was just extra noticeable and it didn't really mesh all that well. And maybe if you've seen it, maybe you felt the same way and you might be able to call out what I'm talking about. Otherwise, I think other than that one character when they were on screen, for the most part, everything else was fine. I never found it distracting. I thought the action was beautiful. I liked that the characters were animated really well, surprisingly enough, despite all of that. And like I said, once the story got moving and we got reintroduced to a lot of characters and got to pick up where people are now, it really just melted away, and the story had me. Where I think this movie really excels for me is that it feels like a love letter to anybody that has been watching the series from Dragon Ball to now. Like, it encapsulates a lot of these great moments from the series from the very beginning, and tonally, this film really feels the most similar, I would say, to late Dragon Ball. It's a little lighthearted, it's a lot more fun, it's got a lot more comedy involved with it, but when the action kicks in and the stakes kick in, it does go hard. And I love that they are pushing the limits of this. And one of the things that I will just say, and I think it's promoted pretty heavily in the trailers and stuff like this, is that this story is primarily about Gohan and Piccolo. And it really seems like the writers behind this, the director behind this one in particular, and it is a story, it is designs and stuff from Akira Toriyama, but of course the person heading the actual production itself and the script writers and all that, like there's this sense that they know exactly how the fan base has felt about these two characters ever since the Cell games. There's a lot of the memes surrounding these characters that it feels like they are more aware of and they incorporate into the story. You know, how Goku's the absentee father and Piccolo's really, really Gohan's dad in this. They lean into that hard with their relationship, with Piccolo's relationship with Gohan, with Piccolo's relationship with Videl, and now he's also helping them raise Pan. He's basically the grandfather that Goku is not. It's so fitting, and it's just so rewarding that they are continuing to pay off that relationship and even so deepening it. I really liked that about this because these are two characters that I feel like the show was always setting up that dynamic from Dragon Ball Z's beginnings, and passing that legacy on to Gohan, always talking about his potential, where he's going to go. And then after the Cell games, when he hit his peak and his prime, where he only kind of touched upon it when he got the ultimate power up in the Majin Buu saga, where he just went right back into that once we caught back up with him in the Super. You know, it's always been this thing. Like once Team Gohan defeated Cell, it went right back to being the Goku Vegeta show. And while Goku and Vegeta are my two favorite characters in this series, it is still a glaring problem that a lot of these characters and a lot of that development just got completely shafted purely because of the fan reception, really. From what I can recall back in the day, after the Cell games, Goku was going to stay in the afterlife. That was kind of the plan, but there was like a pull and a push to bring him back into the fold. It's like we weren't ready to let go just yet, or at least the overall fandom wasn't. And I felt like Gohan was the biggest casualty of all of that. And it's been a running theme, a running gag, a running meme, and a point of contention in the fan base for many years. And I love that this film really dives into it and addresses that. A main core aspect of this movie is Gohan's untapped potential. It addresses, what he could have been had he stuck to it, had he kept up with his training and all this stuff. And it really kind of centers a lot around that as these two newcomers on the scene pose a threat to them called Gamma 1 and Gamma 2. And they themselves are some really interesting characters. I don't know what the trailers actually went into as far as what information about these characters were revealed, but we got Gamma 1 and Gamma 2 as our primary characters who are fighting the people that we know and love and have come to know and love for all these years. These come out of nowhere and they're hunting them down. And they are, I'd say, kind of Ginyu-esque, except they believe they are superheroes. That's kind of the namesake of the movie, is this concept of superheroes. They are in league with this Dr. Hedo, who is also obsessed with superheroes. He even attends conventions and stuff like that, and believes himself to be the hero, and maybe has some information that is not completely accurate that makes him think that the Z Fighters are villains. And seeing that whole thing play out is a lot of fun. Those two characters, Gamma 1 and 2, I thoroughly enjoyed them both, and they won me over real quick. They were really entertaining, they were really endearing, and they kick some ass, man. The action sequences in this movie were stellar. I don't think they pushed the boundaries of coolness that Broly did in a lot of ways, and where I think Broly was probably the peak in action. I think this is the peak in storytelling. While the action doesn't suffer at all, by no means, the action is still really good. But what I really enjoyed about this movie more than anything is the story. And I think I kind of started to touch on this, is like what makes this movie stand out for me, where I think it's probably the best, if not one of the best, Dragon Ball related films we've ever had, is that it has a proper 3-act structure. It really furthers and grows our characters as characters. It pays off a lot of things that the series itself has been kind of alluding to and building upon for a long time. It really feels like a movie, where a lot of the other Dragon Ball film entries, I feel like, are just like 1-act, 2-act kind of things. They don't feel, none of them, a lot of them rarely feel like a fully realized movie, as opposed to a really broadened and fleshed out idea, if that makes any sense whatsoever. And this, like I said, it's a little more tonally consistent with like the back half of Dragon Ball as we transition into Dragon Ball Z. And I really appreciate kind of the love that it throws to every different era of this franchise. It's one that's been close and near and dear to my heart for a long time. I've been a fan since Dragon Ball, not Dragon Ball Z, since Dragon Ball. So like, it means a lot. And I love what this movie did with the kind of way that the series has treated the movies. I'm not sure how much of this is going to survive and translate into the anime itself, let alone the manga. So I have no idea how that's going to stick around, but I hope it does, because I really like what they did with this. I really like what they did with these characters, and I hope it sticks, man. I hope it really does. I love the dynamic of Piccolo and Gohan. While Goku's still my favorite character in the whole franchise, I acknowledge he's a deadbeat dad. He's kind of a bad character. But Gohan and Piccolo, they're just the heart of, I feel like, the entire saga, really. And I love that this kind of sheds a light on that, man. Also, there is a post-credit scene, so do stick around at the end of this movie, because it is one you don't want to miss, trust me. But I really enjoyed it. there's some comedy in it that doesn't necessarily work. There are some characters that make some appearances, some sequences that I feel like I would have made very different choices considering. While Piccolo and Gohan get a lot of love, there are some characters that do get some other bits of attention that I didn't think were quite as good, and in some ways a little insulting. So if you're a fan of some characters that pop up, you might not like how they're interpreted here, at least for the short glimpses we get of any of the other fighters and stuff like this in this film. But overall, like I said, at its core, while this movie isn't perfect, it does have some sequences, like I said, that don't land for me, some comedy that doesn't land for me, and some things that I'm just like, oh, why'd you have to do that with him? Or whatever. That overall, the core of Gohan and Piccolo, the core story, the core villains, the core thread, all of that outshone all of the complaints that I have with this movie, and I really enjoyed it. So I'd love to know your thoughts for any longtime fans or even newcomers. If you saw this movie, I'd be surprised, but I'd love to know your thoughts. So sound off the comments. Let me know your thoughts down below. We'll carry on the conversation after the video. Feel free to join our Discord. We can talk about it there as well. Links to that in all my socials in the description box below. Follow me in each and every one of those. Before we go, I want to shout out our channel legends: Manny Sherritt, Ryan Karen, Jason Coleman, Philly Vane, Yori, Corey Scott, Margaret Grace, Mary Bradley, Melita, Robert Anguiano, and Raven McGann. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. That's it for this video, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care, everybody.